March 6th through March 10th, 2026, Northeast Ohio experienced what cryptozoologists call a flap, a term originally coined by the late John Keel regarding the groupings of UFO sightings. 6 separate Bigfoot sightings in 4 days across Portage and Trumbull counties. The reports show a pattern, an eastward progression. Mantua to Garrettsville to Windham to Newton Township. Heights ranging from 6 to 10 feet, brown and black fur. And on March 10th at 4 a.m., a German shepherd sees something in the woodline and comes back inside shaking with fear. The Bigfoot Society says this kind of cluster activity hasn't happened since the 1970s. That very same week, astronomers published findings in Nature Astronomy about a vast flat structure of dark matter surrounding our galaxy. A cosmic sheet spanning tens of millions of light years that explain why nearby galaxies move away from the Milky Way instead of being pulled toward it. And on March 3rd, Johns Hopkins researchers blasted bacteria with pressure simulating an asteroid impact ejection from Mars. 60% survived. The equipment broke before the bacteria did. Maybe we're Martians, said researcher Zhao. A Bigfoot flap in Ohio, a cosmic sheet of dark matter, and bacteria tough enough to survive interplanetary travel. All of it happened this week. And welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole.
Imagine that this line represents time. Present 1985. Future. Past. Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985. Alternate to you, me, and Einstein. Reality for everyone else.
What's up, everyone? I'm Jeremy Sosha, and you're listening to the Infinite Rabbit Hole, your briefing on the unexplained. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Jake, and we've got a packed episode tonight for you. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and leave us a rating and review. It helps more people find the show. You can find us on infiniterabbithole.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We're posting video versions of every episode so you can watch along as we break down the unexplained. And as of right now, when we're recording this on March 12th, we're only 89 subs away from our 1,000 subscriber mark. Big stuff for us. Before we jump into the news, I want to mention something I'm really excited about. On Saturday, May 9th, I'll be at CapCon, the Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention up in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, at the Radisson Hotel and Conference Center. I'll be sitting on the UFO, UAP, and CE5 discussion panel alongside the likes of Ian DeGraff, Zach Screed, and Dustin Schuta with Jeff Finnup as our host. If you're in the area, or if you can make the trip, I'd love to meet some of you face-to-face. Use code RABBITHOLE at checkout utilizing the link in our recent social posts, and you'll get 10% off your tickets. All right, let's get into it. We've got 2 stories in our briefing section tonight, and then we're going deep on something that might actually provide evidence that life on Earth could have originated on Mars. But first, our news briefing. In our first story, Northeast Ohio just experienced what cryptozoologists call a flap. 6 separate Bigfoot sightings in 4 days, moving in a clear eastward pattern across Portage and Trumbull counties. For our second story, astronomers discovered a vast, flat structure of dark matter surrounding our galaxy that solves a 50-year-old mystery about why nearby galaxies move away from the Milky Way instead of being pulled toward it. Before we jump into all of that, though, we got to check in with the co-host. Jacob, what's up, buddy?
What's up, dude? No, just getting this podcast episode knocked out. I do have a shout out, though.
Ooh.
This week, I was over at the grocery store here in town, and I ran into a fan. Name's Ethan. Ethan, thank you so much for the conversation. Kind of chatted with him for a little bit on what he thinks about the show and the format and how we kind of came to a decision amongst the co-hosts of what the format should be, and it was a really interesting and productive conversation. He definitely agreed that the new format is a lot better, and he didn't enjoy all of our bouncing around with different styles and everything, and he agrees that this is cool, that it's current news, but that it also parallels our very earliest form of Infinite Rabbit Hole, where a section was read from a script and then there was chit chat about it and everything. And so he's really digging it, and he thinks that we should expect to go a long way. And I was able to. He said that he was going to recommend us to his fans, and I gave him a bunch of business cards and stuff, and he said he was going to pass them out. So yeah, Ethan, thank you so much for chatting with me and everything. And I don't know how Jeremy feels about this, but I don't personally feel like a celebrity or anybody of major importance. So if you see me in my truck with the Infinite Rabbit Hole thing on the side of it and you want to stop and say hi, feel free to approach. Like, don't, stare at me or anything like that. I'm just a guy that works a day-to-day job and we do a show. So yeah, but it was if you want to come up and say hi and, discuss the show and stuff like that, feel free to. But yeah, really cool talk with Ethan, and thanks for listening.
Great. Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate you, man. I don't have any fancy stickers or anything on my vehicle. But if you know who I am, you see me, by all means. I've been recognized a few times in town, which is pretty cool. I love it. Talk to us. I dig it.
I'll tell you what though, man, it was super weird because that just, it doesn't happen, right? So it's like, it's just kind of getting used to people being like, oh, I listened to that show. I'm like, oh, neat. It's just like, I don't really know what to say. It's just like, oh, that's cool. Like even, I was fishing one time. A guy approached me while I was fishing. It's like, is that your truck parked over there? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I listened to that show. And I was like, oh, hi, I'm Jake. And he's like, oh, nice to meet you. And we kind of chatted for a little bit, but yeah, it kind of shocks me every single time because I'm not used to, any sort of recognition or, being noticed for anything because I'm just a normal guy. So it's like, oh, that's weird. But I guess we'll have to get used to it.
The first time it happened to us, it happened together, and it was in the town that we're in now. I had just moved here. You came up here to visit me, and we were in the local card shop with the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And the lady behind the counter was like, I know that logo on that shirt.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. Well,
it was like, wow, okay, that's cool. Yeah.
It's before I even announced that I moved here or anything. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you'll notice we don't have CJ today. That's planned for this week. I'm the douchebag. I'm going on vacation with the family starting tomorrow, and tomorrow is typically the day that we would record. So we had to push this out a little earlier. In fact, it might even be a slightly shorter episode. Typically we do 3 to 4, sometimes 5 briefings at the front end of the episode, but I had to really punch this out during my typical work days. I've been at work 13, 14 hours the last 2 days and stayed up late getting this together and up nice and early getting it together, and just finished it off as I was walking in the door here before I jumped on with Jake. So we only have 2 topics for the briefing tonight. I do have a third topic that I have a script written up for, but I didn't really edit it, so I'm not going to read it off. I also think that it may be too sciencey for the Infinite Rabbit Hole. It doesn't really have anything weird about it. It's just cool science.
I mean, honestly, the last episode was 3 hours long, so I think these guys could use a break.
Well, pretty good chance that this one's going to be one of the shorter episodes of the new format, even though we have been aiming for an hour-long episode, and we've been failing terribly at
miserably.
that. All right, man, you got anything else before we jump into this?
Nah, man, ready to go when you are.
Sweet, let's do it. Between March 6th and March 10th, 2026, Northeast Ohio experienced what cryptozoologists call a flat. 6 separate Bigfoot sightings in 4 days across Portage and Trumbull counties. This isn't just random scattered reports. This is a cluster, a pattern. The sighting started in Mantua Center and moved steadily eastward through Garrettsville, Windham, and into Newton Township. Something is moving through a corridor. Here's the timeline. March 6th, 12:23 p.m., Mantua Center. A local researcher spots a 9-foot-tall brown male standing about 120 yards away near State Route 44. The creature displays what they described as high situational awareness. It sees it's being watched and retreats at high speed. March 7th, 10:52 p.m., still in the Mantua area, a witness encounters an 8-foot figure with long arms and dark brown hair. Before seeing it, they heard heavy footsteps. Quote, too low, too spaced out, and way too heavy for a deer or another hiker. Deep, vibrating grunts. And when they investigated, they found oversized, muddy footprints. Then March 9th gets busy. 3 sightings in one day. 10:20 a.m., Garrettsville. A hiker encounters an 8-foot Sasquatch covered in black fur and immediately evacuates the area. 11:47 a.m., Headwaters Trail. A 10-foot black figure. The witness describes a stilt-like gait and a strong, musky odor. 6 p.m. in Windham. Now, this one's a little different. Smaller, maybe 6 feet tall, brown fur, but running with what witnesses call an impossibly long stride. And then there's the most recent report. March 10th, 4 a.m., Newton Township in Trumbull County. A resident lets their German Shepherd out on a chain. The dog immediately lunges toward the woodline in what they describe as a highly aggressive move. The witness looks out and sees a massive black shadow, 8 to 10 feet tall, crashing through the brush. They were very clear, quote, way bigger than a bear. Then they got the dog back inside. It was shaking. A German Shepherd, visibly trembling. Now, the variation in height, 6 feet to 10 feet, and color, brown to black, has led the Bigfoot Society to suggest this might not be one individual. Their working theory is a family group, maybe multiple subjects moving through Headwaters Trail, Greenbelt Corridor. The Bigfoot Society has been tracking this closely, and according to Jeremiah Byron, the host who hosts the Bigfoot Society podcast and has interviewed over 1,000 people about Bigfoot encounters. This kind of cluster activity in a small area over a short time frame hasn't happened since 1970s. He says the witnesses are shook up, emotional, and want to stay anonymous. Now, full transparency here, the Portage County Sheriff's Office says they checked the reports from March 6th and 7th and found nothing about Sasquatch. No official police reports filed, but that's not unusual. A lot of people don't want to go on record with law enforcement about seeing a cryptid. Ohio ranks 4th in the country for Bigfoot sightings, by the way, behind Washington, California, and Florida. And the fact that this activity is showing a clear geographic progression, moving steadily eastward, is what makes it so compelling to researchers. The question now is whether this continues. And if it does it keep moving east? Does it cross state lines, or does it just stop? Now, since I wrote up the initial bit of this script for this episode, there has been a major development this morning when I checked on this story, as I do very often with a lot of cryptids. This story has actually gone national. This has made it to the mainstream. On March 11th, yesterday, as the time of this recording, Portage County Sheriff Bruce Zukowski publicly acknowledges the reports. He told Cleveland 19 News that 10 individual people contacted authorities saying they saw a quote-unquote big creature with a musty odor that suddenly ran when spotted. But here's the thing. Garrettsville police confirmed they received 0 official calls. The Portage County Sheriff's Office has no formal reports that are filed about the Sasquatch, which means people are seeing something or claiming they're seeing something, but they're not willing to go on record with law enforcement. Same story we hear quite a bit. The story exploded across social media, though. Fox News National picked it up, Yahoo ran it, WKYC in Cleveland called it the biggest cryptid event since the 1970s. Twitter had a field day. Sports commentator Ken Carman posted, quote, I have been to these places recently, and yes, I live in Portage County, but I am not Bigfoot. Haha. So funny. And as of this morning, March 12th, again, the day we're recording this, there have been no new sightings reported since the March 10th German Shepherd incident. The activity seemed to have stopped. So either the family group moved out of the area or whatever was moving through the corridor is gone. Jake, simple question for you, man. Want to go to Ohio?
Yeah, let's do it.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah, well, we might have to go to the state east of Ohio, considering they're moving east. But yeah, no, I mean that sounds pretty cool. I mean, it definitely, I don't know, it makes it feel more like a real animal than just a figment of people's imaginations when it seems to be a group of them and they're traveling and there's variations. Like if it was the exact same, I don't know, description every single time, it would have a different feel than descriptions of what appear to be various individuals in a group. And who's to say, like, I mean, science is yet to officially say that, Sasquatch is an actual animal, but we know that great apes can, or many animals rather, their hair colors change as they get older. Um, I mean, even our common deer, right? They have spots and then they grow out of their spots into, whatever color is kind of grayish or tan or whatever it is. I mean, who's to say that a Sasquatch wouldn't do the same thing? They're one color as their juveniles and then they grow up and everything. And it's not weird that they would be like, well, there's one that I saw that was like 6 foot tall, which is basically, the size of a regular person. It's like, okay, well, I mean, if Sasquatch are real, they're not born 8 feet tall, right? They're not
Yeah.
born 10 feet tall. They're born at some smaller stature as infants, more than likely, unless they hatch out of eggs, in which case they'd still be smaller, right? And then they have to grow up to that. So it's, and it makes me wonder, it's like, so let's say, just for the sake of argument, that Sasquatch is real, right? I mean, I have had my experience and you've had your experience, but let's just say it's real. I wonder how many times we've seen a footprint on a beach or, at a lake or something like that, or a group of footprints. And to us, they just look like regular, size 10, size 11, 12 human feet, but they're actually juvenile Sasquatch because they haven't grown to their full stature where their footprint is now 16 inches long. And you look at that and you're like, either there's a 6'8", human being walking around here with monster sized feet, or there's a normal sized human being with monster sized feet, because I've met a couple of those, or it's a Sasquatch, right? And then you cast it and find out, if it gets studied, that there's a mid-tarsal break, like the great apes have and everything, and that's how you can kind of identify between a ape footprint and a human footprint, is because of that mid-tarsal break. And then other varying degrees of, varying factors. But, it makes you kind of wonder, it's like, how many times have you seen bare footprints outside and just assumed, somebody was enjoying nature, when in reality it was actually a juvenile Sasquatch, right? So it's like, because I mean, they have to grow up, right? They're like everything else, right? They're born small and then they grow up and they die. But yeah, I like that there's a variation in the sightings. Also, it appears that with the sightings, like you said, they're moving, right? So it definitely seems like a troop of them are going from one area to another. And I would be so interested if we could ever get to a point where legitimate scientists would, do some hardcore in-depth research to find out, the legitimacy of these claims, to say, okay, well, these are real animals, and then we could study them and find out, do they migrate? Do they migrate with food sources? Do they migrate with weather changes? Are they, do they roam around in troops or whatever, whatever you'd call them as a group, or a pack, like, all these
A
varying
gaggle.
things. Right, like any other group of animals that we study, like how similar are they to other great apes, type things, and or not, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I love that this was just like you said, a flap of sightings, but that all those different key things that went into it. So it definitely doesn't appear to be only one individual. It definitely appears to be a group of individuals. And yeah, unfortunately, we have seen that a lot where, I mean, I didn't call the police when I saw mine running through Oklahoma, or whatever it was. Yeah, I know you didn't call the police when you saw yours in the New England area. Even if I had thought about it, I probably wouldn't have, right? Because I mean, what am I going to do? Waste the police time? Be like, I saw something. And it's like, okay, well, no one was committing a crime, so what's the point? In that regard, but also, I don't know. It would probably. I mean, I don't care what people think about me, and I do this show with you, but I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that would certainly hope that their reputation wasn't marred with, "You saw Bigfoot," It's like, I don't know, are you a realtor and you need people to talk good things about you? You don't want someone to be like, "Yeah, I mean, he's a great realtor, but he's a little bit crazy because he thinks he saw Bigfoot one time," and maybe you lose business because of it. I don't know. What does that look like to the individual? So I can definitely see, saying to maybe a news source anonymously, "Hey, I saw this thing too," but not wanting to go on official police report, because depending on what's going on, that might get broadcasted without you being anonymous, right?
Yeah.
A local news station might pick that up and just be like, "Well, it wasn't anonymous on the police report. It's not going to be anonymous now," and then what does that look like? So, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It doesn't strike me as odd at all.
I wanted to bring up. I mean, you bring up some good points, but I wanted to bring up just a simple. I want to show everybody how big this has actually gotten, because this is actually probably one of the bigger stories involving Bigfoot that I've ever come across. Just want to show you here. All I did was go to Google and look up Ohio Bigfoot. You can see it right here in the search bar, and go over the news tabs and look at all this. One day, 14 hours ago, one day, 9 hours ago. But here's that WKYC article that I specifically talked about, Fox 8. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, shoot, it's being covered by Newsweek. There's the Cleveland 19 article with the Bigfoot giving the back rub to the guy. Yeah, they've been found in what do they call those, happy parlors? Yeah, weird. And then the WKYC article, want to make sure we give them credit for this. WKYC Studios, WKYC.com even gives you a map and shows you the movement. It's pretty neat,
Wow.
man. I mean, this is something that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. We may be reporting on this again next week if this continues, if we keep getting reports of this. But yeah, this was cool to read about. And of course, just being somebody who's interested in this kind of stuff and someone who checks current news for all the stuff I'm interested in, this stuck out like a sore thumb. I was like, I got to get this in for sure. Checked it this morning. I already had the script written up this morning because I stayed up late to get it done for this particular briefing. And I was like, wow, shit, I got to put an update in there because it seems like a lot of different sources has picked it up. Very cool.
That's really cool.
No, but I like how you brought up a lot of different things. You're right. They come out small, whether it's, the same way as most mammals or whether they lay eggs. And then by the ripe age of 2 years old, they're 6 feet tall and ready to kick ass. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, the Bigfoot topic, it's something that I don't talk about too much on this podcast. I mean, we've touched on it here and there, and specifically,
well, I'm wearing a shirt for it, so
you are. That's an oldie.
Bigfoot's favorite podcast. He's wearing our shirt, so that's how you know.
Yeah, that's how you know. I'm heavily involved in research for Bigfoot. I wouldn't say most of my books, but a good chunk of my books back here involve Bigfoot. I just don't report on it very often unless it's a urban legend. I feel like the topic of Bigfoot is too easy to talk about sometimes because I had my sighting as a kid, but there's enough evidence out there in my mind on top of me having my incident where it's not really a mystery to me anymore. There's a lot of evidence. I mean, there's a lot of reports of people finding human-shaped footprints out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Alaska, across a creek bed. And, I feel like the evidence is too good for it. And with my own personal account, it's not something I feel like I need to really dive into and dissect because I'm a believer, man. It's not necessary to me very much, but I still like to read up on the reports, and I know a lot of people listen to the show. They like hearing about Bigfoot. So I feel like this new format is a really good way to squeeze some Bigfoot in there and make everybody happy and kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking at and where I'm getting my sources from. Always cool to talk about. Anyways, you ready to roll, man? Ready on briefing number 2?
Mm-hmm.
We're already a third of the way done.
Oh, man.
Isn't that crazy?
But half an hour in, so.
But half an hour in.
Better tighten it up.
Well, the next 2 is about space, and we know you don't like to talk about space.
True. Very fake.
All right. On March 6th, 2026, researchers at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands published findings in Nature Astronomy that fundamentally change how we understand the structure of dark matter around our galaxy. They discovered a vast, flat structure of dark matter surrounding the local group, which is the clusters of galaxies that include the Milky Way, Andromeda, and dozens of smaller dwarf galaxies. This cosmic sheet spans tens of millions of light years, and it has cosmic voids above and below it. Let me explain why this matters. For over 50 years, astronomers have been puzzled by something that doesn't make sense. When you look at the galaxies near the Milky Way, most of them are moving away from us instead of being pulled toward us by gravity. That's kind of backwards. The Milky Way is massive. It should be pulling nearby galaxies in, not pushing them away. Astronomers have proposed various explanations over the decades. Maybe there's some kind of repulsive force we don't understand. Maybe the distribution of dark matter is different than we thought. Maybe our models of gravity need adjustment. But this discovery solves it. The research team, led by PhD graduate Eastward and Professor Amina Helmi at the University of Groningen, along with collaborators from Germany, France, and Sweden, used advanced simulations to map the dark matter distribution around the local group. And what they found is that we're not sitting in a spherical halo of dark matter like astronomers assumed. We're sitting inside a flat sheet. Think of it like a cosmic pancake. The Milky Way, Andromeda, and the other galaxies in our local neighborhood are embedded in this flat structure. And above and below the sheet are massive voids, regions of space with almost no matter at all. Now, here's why that explains the 50-year mystery. Galaxies within the sheet are being pulled along the plane of the sheet, but galaxies outside the sheet, above or below, are being pushed away by the gravitational influence of all that concentrated mass in the flat structure. So it's not that the Milky Way isn't exerting gravity. It's that the overall architecture of the dark matter creates a configuration where galaxies outside of the plane move away instead of being pulled in. The team tested this by creating what they called a virtual twin. They built a computer model of the local group based purely on the motions and positions of galaxies without telling the simulation that the dark matter structure should look like. And the simulation naturally produced a flat sheet of dark matter with cosmic voids above and below. Then they checked the simulation against real observations. The virtual twin accurately produced the positions and velocities of 31 nearby galaxies without being told what those positions and velocities should be. Professor Amina Helmi said this, quote, "I'm excited to see that. Based purely on the motions of galaxies, we can determine a mass distribution." In other words, they reverse engineered the invisible structure of dark matter just by watching how galaxies move. Now, here's the big picture. Dark matter makes up about 85% of all matter in the universe. We can't see it, can't touch it. We can only detect it through its gravitational effects. And for decades, we've been trying to figure out how dark matter is distributed in large scales. Is it smooth and uniform? Is it clumpy? Does it form filaments, sheets, or bubbles? This discovery suggests that dark matter organizes itself into large-scale structures, sheets and voids, that shape how galaxies cluster and move. And that has implications for everything from galaxy formation to the evolution of the universe itself. It also raises a philosophical question. We live inside this cosmic sheet. We're embedded in the structure tens of millions of light years across, and we had no idea it was there until now. What else are we sitting inside that we haven't detected yet? So, Jake, we're basically sitting inside this massive cosmic sheet tens of millions of light years across, and we had no idea until now. Does that change how you think about your place in the universe?
Do I still have to pay taxes?
You do.
Then no, not much.
I had a feeling that there wasn't going to be much to this one. I feel like if CJ or Jeff were here, this would break out into an entire conversation about how space is fake and dumb.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, but it's like space just isn't my.
I know.
I know. It's not my super high interest point. I'm more focused on, what's in the mountains and what's in the jungles and what's in the ocean and things like that. Like, space is cool, and I think that we've studied more of space than we have the bottom of the ocean. I'm pretty sure that that's a accurate quote.
The moon. The surface of the moon.
We've studied more of the surface of the moon than the bottom of the ocean.
There you go.
Well, that's in space.
Yeah.
Some form of space. If you ask Jeff, it's not even outside the atmosphere, so I don't know.
Technically, it's not.
It's not?
It's technically not, no.
Okay, well. But yeah, so that's really where my interests lie, is within the realm of things we can reach without, and I'm trying to say this carefully because obviously you're going to have to spend a lot of money and a lot of funding, a lot of science to get to the bottom of the ocean in most places because it gets pretty deep down there. And it's just unsurvivable pressures. But it's probably a lot more feasible to get to those places than, say, put a colony on Mars, as much as Elon Musk wants to do that, right? So, yeah, it'd be cool, but a Kraken's not going to come from Mars and kill everybody in North America. So, it might come
Or
from the ocean, depending on the satellite images that have been seen recently, right? So, we'll see.
you're talking about the oh man, it's been a while. I'm
Couple
surprised you
months.
even knew about that. The Leviathan.
Yeah.
I should bring that up. We never talked about that on this show, did we?
No, we didn't. It
So
was you mentioned it, and I looked into it, and I was like, "Oh, that's neat."
So there was just a huge thing that hit right before we changed to this format about Google Images capturing pictures of the Leviathan. Now, I don't know much about the Leviathan. I don't know, Jake, if you can maybe fill in what it is technically. All I know is that it's a giant sea creature, right?
It's made mention in the book of Job in the Bible, and it's just basically in regards to God explaining to Job how powerful he is, that he created the behemoth and he created the Leviathan.
Yeah.
There's not some like big long explanation of it. It's not, it's not made mention as if like people are hunting it type stuff or anything like that. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I couldn't tell you something that lives in the ocean, whether it was a real thing or it was a metaphor or maybe it was in reference to things that we know exist today, like the whale shark or the blue whale or whatever, right? It sounds like the behemoth definitely could have been a large dinosaur with drinking up an entire river, having legs like cedar trees. I believe I'm quoting that right. Leviathan, I mean, could be any large sea creature. Shoot, it could have been, God talking about him making the uh, uh, giant squid. I don't know, but the images were interesting, and that really is what piques my interest into like those sorts of things because it's like a lot of what we deal with space is just like from a layman's point, like if there's a blood moon or and don't get me wrong, the Bible's chock full of like pay attention to the sky type stuff because there's going to be a lot of lunar activity towards the end times and things like that. But if there's a blood moon or there's a comet that goes by or an asteroid or whatever, or it's going to look like, it's going to look like there's, two moons or Mars is going to be super close, type stuff. Like all that is really interesting. But I mean, it's just, it's okay compared to, finding new, animal discoveries, new species, things like that. It's just, you're right. Jeff and CJ would probably be bickering amongst each other right now, but I'm just not the guy for it.
Yeah. Yeah. This can be a boring episode of Infinite Rebel. Leave now if you want. Go ahead.
Oh, screw you.
No, well, I'll bring up images here. I just want to go on record that I don't believe these at all. I just think it was fun while it lasted, right? At no time did I think that this was even a possibility.
Well, it didn't make national news like Big Feet did suddenly,
That's true, yeah. But this is the image that everyone's talking or was talking about here. And this is a computer generated image of what they
Yeah.
believe this represents. And then here I'll go here. This is Google Maps. There we are, right here in Wisconsin, and right at the tip of, I believe it was South America, right? South America. There it is.
Yep.
So I mean,
basically a chain of islands mixed in with the topographical map of the underside of the ocean.
yeah, pretty much. It doesn't have the lines like a topographical map, but yeah, I mean, it literally just shows you like a shelf, and
Yeah.
but it looks fucking badass. Let's be honest. It looks like the head of something huge.
Right.
It does look cool. It looks freaking cool, but the way people were talking about this,
I mean,
I
you
was
would
like,
expected it to have moved by now, not just
I
be
know,
sitting there,
I
right?
know, right?
It's like,
Yeah, right. But it's like, come on, guys. It's this is pareidolia, is
Yeah.
what that's what this is. It looks freaking cool. Could it be a submerged Leviathan? I highly doubt it.
So here's the thing, though. Here's what piques my interest is like, all right, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that I was fully on board that this is like some dinosaur or something underneath the water. Maybe it's a skeleton of a dinosaur, and that's what's making this shelf. I don't know. I could literally save up money for 2 months and take a trip to that point at the bottom of South America. I don't know how many stops that would be in a plane, but I could take a trip to that and I could rent a boat and go there, and it wouldn't take me more than a few months of savings. I will never see the surface of Mars. You see what I'm saying? When it comes to like the two things that pique my interest, I am not smart enough. I don't have a specialty that the government needs for Mars. You know, they've got plenty of avionics technicians.
What are you
that are
talking about,
working
man?
on
You got
the
your
spaceship.
AMP license?
No, I don't. Not yet.
You will.
I will in a few months. But in that same few months, I could be literally in a boat above that spot and be like, well, let's go down there and hold our breath, you know. But it's like I could be there. I could go to the other part of South Africa right there. I could be at the bottom of that spot. I could go to Madagascar right there in that map. And I could do all those sorts of things, and I will never be on the surface of the moon. I'm not my cousin who's in NASA, who's getting ready for a moon mission. You know, she knew what she wanted to do and wanted to be, and she made it happen through the U.S. military and all that sort of stuff. Great for her. Shout out to Jessica. Good job. I will never be that. I'm never going to Mars. I'm never going to be able to probably see like the unedited photos from the Hubble telescope or whatever it is, or was it the James Webb is the new one?
Yep.
Like, I'm never going to be that guy at NASA that's doing that. You know, I'm a podcaster and I work on airplanes, but I could go see that. Maybe I save up for a year, and that will get me closer to seeing what that is before I ever see the surface of another planet. So, you know, it is what it is. And that's why it piques my interest. You know, we could go to Ohio and see if there's big feet. We'll never be able to see Mars. At least what Mars really looks like, and not like Arizona in a red filter. You know?
I believe we can. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I don't. I got to share this with you because I think this is pretty funny. Somebody put it right next to Hampton Roads.
I love the red arrow. They should have done a red circle around it.
They should have.
Yeah.
For those of you that are new to the Infinite Rabbit Hole, Jake and I were in the Navy together, and we were stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, which is meh.
You know, there's a lot of ships out there that are dumping a lot of weird stuff into the ocean. I wouldn't be surprised if
it's
was
a
like
giant poop monster.
Yeah, the sheer amount of human fecal matter in that spot of the ocean has, before they pull into port and after they pull out of port, has created some sort of a mutant giant sea creature that's sitting right outside of Hampton Roads.
That's hilarious. There it is. That's
There it
proof
is.
right there.
Proof. Sea monsters.
That's great. See, we turned it into something. That's great. All right, you ready for the deep dive, man?
Yeah, dude, let's go.
Guess where we're going?
To space.
We're going to Mars.
Yeah. Well, never mind. Yeah. I guess Mars is my interest. I don't know.
All right, let's deep dive. On March 3rd, 2026, researchers at Johns Hopkins University published a study in PNAS Nexus that might, and I'm not overselling this, might actually provide the first experimental evidence that life could survive traveling between planets. This is about panspermia, the theory that life doesn't necessarily originate on the planet where you find it. That life could start on one world, get ejected into space through a massive impact, survive the journey, and seed another planet. And for the first time, scientists have shown that it's possible. Here's what they did. They took Deinococcus radiodurans. I'm going to butcher that because I say that a ton of time in this script. A bacterium known as the toughest organism on Earth, and subjected it to conditions that stimulate what would happen if a chunk of rock containing bacteria was blasted off of the surface of Mars by an asteroid impact. Specifically, they squeezed the bacteria between steel plates and subjected it to 3 gigapascals of pressure. Let me put that in perspective. 3 gigapascals is 30,000 times atmospheric pressure. That's roughly equivalent to the pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the ocean, multiplied by 3. That's the kind of shock pressure you get when a massive asteroid slams into a planet at tens of thousands of miles per hour. And here's what happened. 60% of the bacteria survived. Not only did they survive, they prioritized repairing the damage to their cell structures and kept functioning. And in some of the most extreme tests, the equipment broke before the bacteria did. One of the researchers, a scientist named Zhao, said this, quote, "We have shown that it is possible for life to survive large-scale impact and ejection. Maybe we're Martians." Now that's a bold statement, but it's rooted in real scientific hypotheses that's been debated for over a century. Let me explain panspermia and why this experiment matters. Panspermia is the idea that life exists throughout the universe and spreads from planet to planet or even star system to star system by hitchhiking on rocks, comets, or asteroids. The concept goes back to the ancient Greeks, but the modern scientific version was proposed in the early 1900s by a Swedish chemist named Svante Arrhenius. Arrhenius suggested that tiny microorganisms could be carried through space by radiation pressure from stars. He called it radiopanspermia. That version of the theory has mostly been discarded because space is brutal. Cosmic radiation, ultraviolet light, extreme cold, and vacuum conditions would destroy most organisms exposed directly to space. But there's a more plausible version of panspermia called lithopanspermia. Lithopanspermia says that life doesn't travel naked through space. It travels inside rocks. Here's how it works. A large asteroid or comet slams into a planet, let's say Mars. The impact is so powerful that it ejects chunks of rock into space. Some of those chunks escape Mars's gravity and begin drifting through the solar system. If there's life on Mars, microorganisms living in the soil or in cracks in the rock, some of those organisms could be inside the ejected material. Those rocks drift through space for thousands or millions of years, and eventually some of them fall onto another planet, let's say Earth. The rock enters Earth's atmosphere, heats up, but the interior stays cool enough that the organisms inside survive. The rock crashes into the ocean or onto land, and the microorganisms are now on a new planet. If the conditions are right, water, nutrients, a stable environment, the organisms could start reproducing. And over millions or billions of years, they could evolve into more complex life. That is lithopanspermia. And it's not science fiction. We know for a fact that rocks get ejected from planets and travel through space. We found meteorites on Earth that came from Mars. Over 200 confirmed Martian meteorites have been discovered. We know they're from Mars because the chemical composition of gases trapped inside them matches the Martian atmosphere, which was measured by the Viking lander in the 1970s. So the mechanism for transporting rocks between planets is real. The question is, could life survive the journey? And that's what the Johns Hopkins experiment tested. The researchers focused on the most extreme part of the journey, ejection. When an asteroid hits a planet, it doesn't just knock rocks into space gently. It creates a shock wave that propagates through the ground. The pressure is immense. The temperature spikes. The rock accelerates from 0 to escape velocity in a fraction of a second. That's the most violent part of the process. If life can survive the ejection, then the rest of the journey, drifting through space, entering an atmosphere, landing, might be survivable too. So the team used a mineral anvil press to simulate impact shock. They placed Deinococcus radiodurans bacteria between 2 steel plates and applied pressure gradually until they reached 3 gigapascals. They held the pressure for a brief period, simulating the shock wave, and then released it. Then they checked to see how many bacteria survived, and 60% made it through. Bacteria that survived showed evidence of damage to their cell envelopes, the outer membrane that protects the cell, but the cells prioritize repairing that damage. They activated DNA repair mechanisms, rebuilt their cell walls, and resumed normal function. In some tests, the researchers pushed the pressure even higher to see where the bacteria would fail, and they never found the limit. The equipment reached its maximum capacity and broke before the bacteria stopped surviving. Now, Deinococcus radiodurans is not a normal bacterium. It's an extremophile. an organism that thrives in conditions that would kill almost anything else. Let me tell you about this thing. Deinococcus radiodurans was discovered in 1956 by a scientist named Arthur Anderson. He was studying food preservation and tried to sterilize canned meat using radiation. The idea was pretty simple. Blast the cans with enough radiation to kill all the bacteria inside, and the food would stay preserved indefinitely. But when Anderson opened the cans, he found that some of them were still spoiled. There was a bacterium inside that survived doses of radiation high enough to kill every other known organism. That bacterium was Deinococcus radiodurans. Its nickname, owning the bacterium, because it's almost indestructible. Here's what it can survive. It can withstand radiation doses 1,000 times higher than what would kill a human. In fact, it can survive doses that would completely shred the DNA of most organisms. It can survive extreme dehydration. You can dry it out completely, leave it in desiccated states for years, and then rehydrate it, and it will come back to life. It can survive freezing. It can survive heat. It can survive acidic environments. It can survive vacuum conditions. And the reason it can do all of this is because it has an extraordinary DNA repair system. Most organisms have 1 or 2 copies of their genome. Deinococcus radiodurans has 4 to 10 copies. When radiation or extreme conditions damage its DNA, and I mean really damage it, shattering it into hundreds of fragments, the bacterium can use that intact copies as templates to rebuild the broken ones. It has repair enzymes that reassemble the DNA like a jigsaw puzzle, and it does this incredibly fast. So when Johns Hopkins team subjected it to 3 gigapascals of pressure, the bacteria's DNA got shredded, but the cells didn't die. They just started repairing, and 60% of them succeeded. Now, here's the question. Is Deinococcus radiodurans representative of what could happen with other organisms? The truth is probably not. Most bacteria wouldn't survive. But that's not the point. The point is that life under right conditions with the right biological adaptations can survive impacts powerful enough to eject rocks from planets. If Deinococcus radiodurans exists on Earth, it's not unreasonable to think that similar extremophiles could exist on Mars or Europa or Enceladus or any other world with surface water and energy sources. So let's talk about Mars. Mars today is a cold, dry, radiation-blasted desert. The atmosphere is thin, less than 1% the density of Earth's. The surface is bombarded by ultraviolet light and cosmic rays. Liquid water can't exist on the surface because the pressure is too low. But Mars wasn't always like this. Billions of years ago, around 3.5 to 4 billion years ago, Mars had a thicker atmosphere, liquid water on the surface, and possibly a magnetic field that protected it from radiation. In other words, early Mars was potentially habitable. We know this because we found evidence of ancient riverbeds, lake beds, and what might have been an ocean in the northern hemisphere. The Mars rovers, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, and Perseverance, have found rocks that formed in the presence of water. So if Mars was habitable 4 billion years ago, could life have existed there? We don't know, but it's possible. And if life did exist on Mars, and if Mars was hit by a large asteroid, which we know it was, then rocks containing Martian microorganisms could have ejected into space. Some of those rocks would have drifted through the solar system, and some of them would have eventually fallen on Earth. Now here's the really interesting part. Life on Earth appeared very quickly after the planet became habitable. The Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago. For the first few 100 million years, the surface was molten. It was bombarded by asteroids. It was completely inhospitable to life. But as soon as the surface cooled and liquid water appeared around 4 billion years ago, life showed up. We have evidence of microbial life on Earth dating back 3.8 billion years. Some researchers argue it could be even older, possibly 4.1 billion years. And that's a very short window from quote-unquote uninhabitable hellscapes to life existing in a few 100 million years. And that raises a question. Did life originate on Earth, or did it arrive from somewhere else? If panspermia is real, then it's possible that life started on Mars or another planet and got transferred to Earth via meteorite. And if that's true, then we're not Earthlings. We're Martians. So what does that mean? First, it means that panspermia is not just a wild hypothesis. It's a testable, plausible mechanism for how life could spread through the solar system. Second, it means that we need to be extremely careful about contamination when we send missions to other planets. Right now, NASA and other space agencies have strict planetary protection protocols. They sterilize spacecraft to avoid bringing Earth microbes to Mars, Europa, or other potentially habitable worlds. But if Earth life can survive the condition of ejection in space travel, then it's possible that microbes from Earth could contaminate other planets, not through intentional missions, but through natural processes. Conversely, if we find life on Mars, we need to ask, is it native Martian life, or did it come from Earth via meteorite exchange? Third, it means that the search for life in the solar system just got more interesting. We've been focusing on places where liquid water exists. Today, subsurface oceans on Europa, Enceladus, and possibly Titan. But if Panspermia is real, then life could exist in places we wouldn't expect because it didn't originate there. It was delivered. And fourth, it raises the possibility that life is more common in the universe than we thought. If life can travel between planets within a solar system, then it only needs to originate once. After that, it can spread. And if life can spread within a solar system, then maybe, just maybe, it can spread between star systems too. Not via asteroids because the distances are too vast, but via comets or interstellar objects like Oumuamua or even deliberate panspermia, hypothetical advanced civilization seeding other worlds with life. That's speculative, but the Johns Hopkins experiment makes it a little less speculative than it was before. Johns Hopkins researchers subjected the toughest bacterium on Earth to pressure simulating an asteroid impact ejection from Mars. 60% survived. The equipment broke before the bacteria did. This is the first experimental evidence that life could survive being blasted off one planet and potentially landing on another. It doesn't prove that panspermia happened, but it proves that it could happen. And if it could happen, then the question of whether we're alone in the universe just got a little more complicated. Because if life can travel between worlds, then Earth might not be the origin of life. We might be descendants of microbes that come from Mars or Europa or somewhere else entirely. As researcher Zhao said, maybe we're Martians. So Jake, we are all very well aware of your personal beliefs, but for the sake of the episode, I have to ask, what do you think? Does this change how you think about the origin of life on Earth, or is this still too much of a leap?
Okay, so I wrote down some notes while you were going through there.
Yeah.
Have there been any known meteorites that have come from Mars containing bacteria that we have?
There has been a few reports of meteorites or debris that is said to be from Mars. So can we prove it with 100%? No, I don't think so.
Because my follow-up question would be, if you said yes, well, you kind of said yes, can't be proven 100%, and that's fair. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's say I'm wrong, it's not a young Earth, it is in fact an old Earth, and we have craters all over the planet, not just calderas that were once volcanoes, but also actual like impact sites, right? I mean, wouldn't it be more likely that the planet that has all of the greenery on it and still exists despite what people might say is the irreparable damage that humans have done to the Earth, right? Whether that's true or not, that's what's said, right? Greenhouse gases, all that sort of stuff. It's not like we're doing our best to preserve this, right? Seems like if it was possible to destroy the planet, we do a pretty dang good job at it, right? And now you bring nuclear weapons into it, and here we are. But wouldn't it be more likely that we would get hit with a meteorite or meteor and it would bounce bacteria from our planet to Mars to be discovered? Like, I've seen the reports of like, oh, we think we found bacteria on Mars. It's like, okay, well, what's the likelihood that it came from Mars or it came from Earth and then got shot to Mars, right?
It's a good question.
A billion years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Or 2 billion years ago type stuff. And then after all that time, we know that bacteria spreads like nobody's business given the right conditions. What's to say that a big old rock doesn't hit Mars and bounce it back to Earth, and then we're like, oh, this is from Mars, oh, it's bacteria and stuff. And it's like, no, it was just from us from a real long time ago. I made it over there and now it's back, right? Type stuff. I mean, we could honestly just be like catching the flu at work, just coughing into each other's mouths just over the years, basically just sharing bacteria. I mean, I wouldn't say that we're Martians just because we have bacteria that can survive extreme conditions. It's like, okay, so it could. Now give an example of when it did. And it's like, well, before you jump on your high horse or jump to the conclusion that we're from another planet, you should probably, get down a specific time frame where you can say, this is when, we got struck by a meteor. We went over there, we found non-Earth bacteria, whether in a fossilized state or not. And then to that, I'd have to ask, it's like, well, how much change does bacteria do over time? Could it have enough? Because like we know how viruses work, right? They get immune to like our vaccines and stuff. The next year it's stronger and stronger and stronger. But naturally, without that sort of you know, fight or die or adapt sort of response, does bacteria in nature change enough over time that say in 1,000 years, I don't know, name something common, would look completely different and we wouldn't be able to recognize it and be like, I don't know where this came from, but didn't come from here if you didn't have any of the previous, let's call it adaptation in the meantime, right? You just had the original and then you have the new and improved version, but nothing in between. Could you say, oh, it's something completely different, we've never seen this before, without having the knowledge of it actually just changed over time, like a lot of animals do, right? It's not going from bacteria to a fish. It's not evolving like that. It's just going from a simpler form of bacteria to a more complex or stronger form of bacteria, but it's still saying bacteria, right?
Yeah.
I would wonder how much change there is over time. And then, could that be like, okay, we got, I don't know, I'm not like the bacteria guy either. What's a good common bacteria without saying an STD? Full-blown AIDS. All right, so full-blown AIDS. Full-blown AIDS was a billion years ago. Full-blown AIDS looked however full-blown AIDS looked a billion years ago. And then we got hit by a meteorite and it got sent to Mars. And then over the years, the full-blown AIDS has adapted and adapted and adapted here on Earth. Let's say it was stuck in stasis on Mars because it just, it's a harsh environment. There's no moisture. It can't grow. It can't develop. It can't, replicate itself. So it's just stuck in stasis right there. This AIDS here on Earth is getting way, way, way more advanced than wherever it's at now. And, oh no, a meteor hits Mars and it bounces the space AIDS back to Earth. And then we're like, what is this bacteria? We've never seen this before because we're only used to this last, 100 years of bacteria research. We don't know what AIDS looks like a billion years ago. You know what I'm saying?
I don't disagree with you.
But I don't think that we're Martians. It's too far-fetched. I don't personally see any evidence, even in our own fossil records, to show any evidence whatsoever of evolution. You just see one animal that looks like an animal and another animal that looks like an animal, and to say that there's a link in between them when, let's just say it's a rabbit that has 100 cubs. I think they're called cubs. 100 cubs or babies a year, right? Crazy breeding cycles. Or a rat. Over the course of 1 billion years, how many, babies is that? But we have nothing in between. We just have a rat and a lizard. Yeah, they're probably linked somehow. It's just like I just don't see it. And it's even further to go from a bacteria to an animal that's not bacteria, because we still have bacteria. And unless they change in drastic ways, I mean, they're still bacteria, right? So that means that for some reason, some bacteria decided to turn into animals and other bacteria didn't. But they didn't have a brain to decide why to do that or not to do that, right? So it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Also, thanks to Arthur Anderson, I guess we could thank him for all the weird cancers we have, blasting cans of food with radiation. Thanks to that guy.
What a dick.
Also, I have to get this point out just before I forget. I looked it up. All right, it's called Ushuaia. Yeah, Ushuaia, Argentina is the lowest point on that map that you showed me. I could leave Thursday, May 7th and come back Monday, May 11th. 1 day and 5 hours of travel, round trip for $1,798 to the lowest point in Argentina before I get to the island chains and renting a boat. And in another 500 miles, I could be right over the top of that Leviathan. So that's how close I am. I'm literally a paycheck or a disability check away from discovering whether or not this is a Leviathan. That's how close I am before I get to the surface of Mars.
That's phenomenal, man.
There's that's going through multiple airlines.
That's great.
If I wanted to just do a couple airlines, it would be like $3,248. But that's what I'm looking at. That's before baggage fees and all that sort of stuff, But yeah, so that's how close I am to discovering that before I get to the moon or Mars or whatever.
Confirmed, Jake's gonna hunt the Leviathan.
Yeah, right. Leviathan hunting. Give me Ahab and a big spear.
I think I don't have much to add to this, man. I think panspermia is a fascinating topic. I think it's very interesting, but you bring up a good point, right? Could we be just volleying rocks back and forth, right? And where did it originally come from? It's a good question. It is a good question. I did look up. I just asked Google, so I don't know how true this is. Okay, all I'm doing is just going off the Google here. Just
Jeff
for the
would say,
sake,
why not duck, duck, go? But
he'll be all right. So I just said, do we have meteorites from Mars? It said the AI overview on Google says yes, over 300 classified meteorites on Earth originated from Mars. There's your answer. I take that with a grain of salt because it's just a Google. I'm not looking at any peer-reviewed articles or anything like that.
I mean, I have no doubt we've been hit by other planetary rocks, but it's like, were there bacteria on those rocks?
Good question. No idea.
And then, could we say that if it was a yes, could we say that those bacteria originated on that planet? Or since we have 300 known ones, and who knows how many thousands of land forests and jungles and wherever, right? Into the ocean, all kinds of places. What's to say that we aren't just, like you said, falling them back, or my example, coughing them to each other's throats, just like, I got the flu now. Thanks. It's like Mars just got the flu and it's AIDS, right? It's full blown AIDS. So, but I just I don't, and like, even if I was to put on a evolutionary lens, which, it's not hard to do. I understand the reasoning and the need to find out where we came from. It's not lost on me, right? And I can understand it can be difficult for me to just sum it up to be like, yeah, obviously it's a, fantastic creation. It needed a creator, the bacteria had to come from somewhere. It didn't come from nothing, right? So it's like, even if it was evolution, it was right. Where did the bacteria come from? But you'd expect other planets, say, for example, we didn't originate here, or life didn't originate here, or even certain bacteria didn't originate here, whatever, right? But let's just say it did originate on Titan or Europa or whatever these other places are. Why don't we see advanced life on those places? If they had the same bacteria billions of years ago, we should see at least one strain out of all the quintillion species of bacteria that are on Earth, one single strain that developed into something other than just single-celled organisms. Maybe fish, right? If we can't show that, if other planets can have water, if they could have gas, if they don't even have to have what we would consider a breathable atmosphere, because what's to say there can't be an organism that breathes only nitrogen? It would be very different than us, but it's like, shoot, fish breathe oxygen in a water form. It could just be something completely different, right?
I believe we do have organisms on Earth that breathe nitrogen by volcanic vents in the ocean. I'm pretty
but
sure.
But on another planet.
Yeah.
Right. They say, it's it's not life sustaining the makeup of the atmosphere. And it's like, well, what does that matter? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. We have types of sponges and stuff that hang out by volcanic vents, right? But in the ocean, but it's like, that should be apparent and be able to be observed on other planets that are like that. And maybe one day we get to another planet and we find that. I don't know. But until that happens, the idea that, we came from another planet as bacteria and then somehow evolved into this and then all the other things. And also those bacteria probably still exist somehow, is just, yeah, it's kind of silly to me.
Two things. One, just while you were talking about your space aids and spitting it in each other's mouths, two things. I'm pretty sure AIDS is viral. I don't think it's a bacteria. Pretty sure it's viral.
Well, then you failed to name a bacteria.
I did. And while you were talking, I wrote some down that I just off the top of my head, Salmonella, Strep, and Staph, I think are those are bacteria. I'm pretty sure those are bacterial.
Okay, strep then. Full-blown strep. Full-blown
just
staph infection. That's a gross one.
Spitting in each other's mouths.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I know people are going to listen to it, be like, oh, this guy's an idiot. And it's like, yeah, well, I don't study this crap. I don't have a degree in whatever degree is necessary for that. I don't obviously don't work in a lab,
Neither of us have degrees,
I
man.
oftentimes come home with grease under my fingernails. If I worked in a lab, that probably wouldn't happen. Probably, unless it was from a printer or something. But yeah.
And then the only other thing, just to build on what you were talking about, when it comes to what we could breathe differently, I mean, as far as we know, and I know biologists will argue this with me, there could be non-carbon based life forms. And that would be completely foreign to what we could even imagine. You talk to a biologist or any paid Scientologist, scientist out there. Get him, bring him on over here. See, we're dumb. We don't go to school. They would argue that life is based off of carbon. What if it's not? What if it can be based off of a different element? And there's a million reasons why carbon is a perfect vessel for life, perfect building block for life. But we're looking at it through the lens of carbon-based life forms. So I would go out and say I would say that there has to be other elementally based life forms out there as well. I would also not be surprised if it's only carbon-based too. But I just throwing it out there that we really don't know what other life forms look like. We don't know what they consist of. We don't know anything really. Humans have this habit of looking at their environment, at their surroundings through a human lens, which is human nature, right? We are humans. We have human eyes. We have human minds. We have humans' hearts, whatever. So, yeah, you would think that we would see things through a human lens. But let's say there is life in other planets outside of our solar system, outside of our galaxy, somewhere out there. What's to say that the human perspective is anywhere near correct?
It's like every alien movie that has ever happened, with the exception of, I think, maybe The Blob, where it's like it's all carbon-based life forms or some sort of a air breathing or whatever sort of life form. It's like they've never had the one where the thing comes down and its skin is made of diamonds, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I agree, man. It's I don't think Panspermia is the answer, but I believe it's a very interesting topic.
Definitely interesting.
Wes and I actually covered it in one of our first 5 or 10 episodes on the show. Actually, we did a 2-parter on it. Very, very. You guys want to listen to some embarrassing shit? We'll listen to those episodes. I mean, we had no idea what we were doing.
It's certainly incredibly interesting, and it's interesting that I'm previous section just talking about exploring the bottom of the ocean, and that was a reference that you gave. Bottom of the Marianas Trench, 30,000 times atmospheric pressure, which is absolutely insane to think of, right? I mean, I really can't wrap my head around it.
10,000 at the bottom of the Mariana Trench applied
Oh.
3 times the pressure of.
Well, never mind. Still, I can't conceive what that would look like. How fast would that destroy the human body?
Probably
If you
pretty
just got
fast.
subjected to, if a human being got subjected to that pressure instantly, right? Went from like this to that, how small would the pieces be? And would you be even able to see them under anything other than a microscope?
And it's crazy because we have some other extremophiles that live there.
I know.
There's things that live down there, but it's kind of the reverse, right? If you go deep sea fishing and you bring a fish up too fast, its swim bladder goes out of its mouth,
Mhm.
and it explodes where we would implode.
Right.
It's wild, man. It's wild, the diversity of life that's out there on this planet alone. And you would think it would only get more different the further you go. Who's to say that carbon-based life form is the only life form there is? I think it's interesting.
I thought about what I talked to CJ about. I don't think it was this last episode, but maybe the one prior to it. And he said, could it be that we're all in just like terrariums essentially, right? Of just different types of life forms in terrariums. And I still stand by my answer. I said, yeah, I mean, sure, why not, And because honestly, I'm never gonna know, I don't think, but until I'm no longer on this plane of existence. But I mean, yeah, why not? And maybe that goes into that. What does that look like from another dimension? What does life look like, if you could even call it life as we would define it, right? Breathing, hearts, brains, things like that. What does that look like on another dimensional plane? What does that look like in another, completely what we'd see is even maybe to our own bacteria, our panspermia bacteria that can, survive, it seems, everything. What if we found a place that was so hostile even they couldn't survive, but we found what we wouldn't have been able to wrap our heads around as life on that, but still found something moving? I don't know. Like, what does that look like? So yeah, I mean, the interest is certainly there. But I don't know if that'll ever be a thing where it can be like, yep. And then we went to Zeta Reticuli and then found, the colony of ruby people. Like,
Even that'd be technically carbon based though.
Oh, well then never mind, They're made of gas. That's all they are. They're just clouds of atoms.
Like we have goggles, filters, right? That we cannot even perceive something that's not carbon based. It would be damn near impossible to accurately create something that's not carbon based.
Maybe
and
that's
sentient.
I mean, thinking critically, maybe that's why people have a hard time with the idea of God, a non-physical, spiritual, can't see him unless he wants you to see him sort of being.
And that would be a good
that-
example of a non-carbon based
that
life form.
can create life through thought. I mean, I'll be real, it sounds wild. I believe it, but it's like I don't know if I have the understanding in my brain to explain it, besides that. But maybe that's why people have such a hard time with that. It's like, well, I like to, I mean, obviously I'm pretty rational, it's like, I'm not going to see it's snowing outside and go outside in a t-shirt, and plan my whole day around it in a pair of shorts and flip flops. Right. Cause I'm not, cause I can observe what's going on around me. But it's like, to explain something so complex without any way to draw a picture of the thing or visualize the thing. And then say that, well, in order to view it fully, you're going to have to be dead. It's like, okay, well, it's good talking to you, have a great day. I'm going to go ahead and close my door now, So I know maybe that's what people get hung up about.
So I, again, going to Google just to see what would come up here. I think this is pretty interesting here. I put in, what would a non-carbon based life form look like? A non-carbon based life form such as a silicone based organism would look like fundamentally different from anything on Earth, appearing more like moving crystals, like you had said, amorphous blobs, or glassy structures. Potential appearances: living crystals or minerals, amorphous blobs, insectoid or glassy beings. I don't know about this insectoid because even our insects are carbon-based. Or sessile rocks, slow moving or immobile. Potential characteristics: breathing solid waste, high temperature habits or habitats. Alternatives: solvents. Rather than water, they may use liquid methane or ethane or ammonia as a solvent for their metabolism, where we use water, right? Water is the universal solvent.
Sure, yeah.
Very interesting stuff. I don't know. I think that's interesting. I think I found my rabbit hole I'll go down tonight. That's cool.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's definitely cool stuff. I mean, if nothing else, I can chalk that up to scientists just discovered like the most extreme conditions they can put bacteria in, and to find out that not only do they survive, but that they also repair their damaged parts is pretty remarkable. To the end that I would venture to say that if I ever got the opportunity, if I got the opportunity to ask the good Lord why he made them, what was their purpose besides just to be like, just to mess with people when they figured it out, how weak they were. I made bacteria so much more stronger than you. Now what?
What are you gonna do about it, fool?
Yeah, what are you gonna do about it?
All right, man. You ready to log off for the night?
Yeah, dude.
I'm gonna go ahead and get this outro done. Do you have anything else to put out, though?
I don't think so. It's
All
gonna it's gonna be too late once this episode airs, but we're gonna get apparently hammered with snow here in where we're at in Menominee, Wisconsin. It's looking at 24 inches on Sunday. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully it'll just be a little flurry and then it'll go away and the sun comes out and it melts it all. I'm kind of ready for a seasonal shift, but I don't know. We'll see.
Looks like Mother Nature has one more last hurrah for us, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. That's it for tonight's episode. We covered a Bigfoot flap unfolding right now in Northeast Ohio, 6 sightings in 4 days, moving eastward through Portage and Trumbull counties. We talked about the discovery of a vast flat structure of dark matter surrounding our galaxy that solves a 50-year-old mystery about why nearby galaxies move away from the Milky Way. And we went deep on bacteria that survive conditions extreme enough to stimulate asteroid impact ejection from Mars. Possible evidence of panspermia, the theory that life on Earth might have Martian origins. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to Infinite Rabbit Hole wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a rating and review. It really does help more people find the show. You can find us on infiniterabbithole.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. We're back next Tuesday with another deep dive into the unexplained. Until then, keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, and remember, the truth is out there. You just have to know where to look. I'm Jeremy Sosha, and we will see you at the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Goodbye.